Welcome to my YouTube channel Mathma. I am Rahul Naik, and through this video I am beginning with the new lecture series on the course Calculus of One Variable. This course Calculus of One Variable has a 4 credit theory part which we will be covering in this series, and this is a course designed for BSc student semester 1 at Goa University. So, we will be following the syllabus prescribed by the Goa University, and so the topic that we will be covering in this series are the real number system, sequences and their convergence, continuity and differentiation. So, this first 4 topics are directly taken from the principal text, A Basic Course in Real Analysis by Ajit Kumar and S. Kumaresan, published by CRC Press, reprinted in the year 2019. And the very important other book which we use as a reference is Introduction to Real Analysis by Robert Bartle and Donald Sherbert, published by John Whaley and Sons, in the year 1972. So, the first reference over here is used as a principal text throughout the course. The second one is also an important text which we used most of the time. So, let us begin with the first chapter in this course through this video, that is real number system. So, what we discuss in this at the beginning is the real line. So, we all know that there is something called as real number. Right. So, what are this real number, or how do we write down this real number? So, in this session what I will show you, we will see how to explore this real line, how to explore this real line, or how do we draw the real line on a one dimensional plane, and some standard algebraic properties of real number. So, first let me introduce the real numbers that we have. So, to discuss the numbers, to discuss the real numbers, a very basic real number that came first into existence was the natural number, and it is placed in this way. This is your 1, this is your 2, this is your 3, and this goes on. This real line is unending. This real line is unending. And if you see that there is a gap of 1 centimeter, or there is a gap of 1 unit in each of this consecutive natural number. Now, why these are basic and why this was introduced first? Because these are very elementary. In our day to day life we use a natural number. Say suppose someone wants to know their final score in the paper calculus of one variable, it is going to be a natural number, except if he or she scores 0 in that particular paper, which is difficult to score. And there are many things, a number of potholes on the national highway, Mumbai Goa highway, it is a natural number. It is a natural number, either it can be 0 if there are no potholes, or otherwise it is going to be a natural number. The number of apples in the given basket, it is a natural number. So, this natural numbers are so fundamental that we use in our day to day life. So, to put them together, we introduce the notion of set. And this was the definition of set. We will formally define this. It is nothing but a set of collection of certain objects. I am not going to say well defined objects, because that will take me into more logical problem. So, let me just say that it is a collection of objects. So, this notion of set was first introduced by the mathematician George Cantor, and he put this set of natural number in one set, the natural number in one set, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and these are the dots, at least 3 dots, to show that there are infinitely many such elements, and this is an unending set. So, the notation that used for the set of natural number was script capital N. Script means this is different from N, there is a slight one more extra line to this N. Okay. Now the question was, were this enough to proceed ahead, or does this satisfies the real line? No. As you can see that there are many gaps on this real lines which we need to fill. Okay. While performing the certain operation on this natural number like addition, see if I want to add say the baskets having 2 apples in one basket and 3 apples in another basket, and I want to add this 2 apple together, we use the operation plus, and there is a operation something which is derived from this addition and it's called as a subtraction, right. If we remove 3 apples from 4 apples, what we left is 1, but the question was, can I remove 5 apples from given 4 apples, right. And at that point of time we came to the conclusion that we can remove something from anything, or we can remove anything from something, right. We can remove anything from something. And so this notion, see, can we really remove 5 apples from given 4 apples? It's possible, right. If someone can have a negative bank balance, why not we can remove 5 apples from 4 apples, and that's what introduced the notion of integers, and it is denoted by this script set. Okay. Now this integers are all this natural number. Okay, I'll call this as plus 1, plus 2, plus 3, and this goes on. Also there is one more integer that come into existence over here, that's called as a 0, and then you have a negative integers, negative natural number, minus 1, minus 2, minus 3, and this goes on. So that's the reason I left a space over here so that I can write in this way. Okay, although this is a set, this would be the best way to write down, denote this set. What is more important is that on both the side it is unending. Okay, you will never see a point even on the right hand side as well as the left hand side as the last point of that particular set. As a set, being a set, we can actually put element anywhere, but this shows the general picture of how integers goes. Okay, and then there's a well, from where this script set is originated, there's a term called as Zahl. It's a German word, and this refers to accounting. So that set is derived from this word Zahl. Okay, so this is a set of integers. Okay, now again we can see that there are some space between each consecutive natural number and each consecutive integer. So how do we fill that space on this real line? Okay, so to expand this more, we have come across fractions, right. In fact, fractions is a more broader version. So we have come across a set of so called rational number. So any number which can be written in this form, p by q, where p and q are say some integer, or in fact you can keep one natural number, one integers, and denominator, most importantly the denominator is not equal to 0. So this kind of number is called as the rational number. Okay, now how this came into existence? Very simple. Suppose I have one cake and I want to share this one cake among my 4 friends equally. So what you do, you take 1/4 part of that cake. So 1/4 means 1 by 4. That's a rational number. That's not an integer. That's not a natural number. So we define the term called as the rational number. So any rational number which can any number which can put in this form is called as the rational number, and we denote it by the set script q. Okay, q with this one line. So it's a set of all the element of the form r is equal to p by q, such that p and q are integer and q is non-zero. Okay, and to be more precise, this p and q will not have any common factor, because if it has a common factor, it can be reduced to a form of the form p by q which does not have a common factor. Okay, one more set I just forgot to mention is the set of whole number. Okay, some people introduce this, it's actually a natural number, set of natural number along with the 0, and this goes on. Most of the time we use this notation, and sometime some author also use this notation, script and with cap. So we have a rational number, so the rational number will lie somewhere here, and in fact you can see even the natural number as well as integers as well as all the whole numbers are actually a rational number, because suppose I take for example I take 2 can be written as 2 by 1, 0 can be written as 0 by any natural number except any natural number, right? 5 can be written as 5 by 1. So all this number which we have discussed so far are actually rational number. Now the most surprising thing is that it seems like we have filled all the gap on this real line, but Pythagorean, a student of Pythagoras, one of the students of Pythagoras, he discovered that there is a number which cannot be categorized among this. It is not a natural number, it is not even an integer, and it is not even rational number. So it cannot be a rational number, and that number, the idea of that we have actually we got from the geometry. You must be knowing this, that if you have a right hand triangle with the height 1 centimeter and base 1 centimeter, then its hypotenuse is nothing but root 2 centimeter. Okay, and this root 2 cannot be written as p by q. It cannot be. So until then it was thought that all these gaps on the real line, on the line, were filled by the numbers, but there was this suspense which was there was this irrational number, this special kind of number which we called as irrational number, which was suspense until one of the Pythagoreans have proved that, and in fact he stated that there exists such number. Okay, in fact we are going to prove that this root 2 is irrational, it's irrational number. So it's basically a complement of this set. So any number which cannot be put in this form is called as the irrational number, and it is denoted by this q complement, or it's also same as the whole r but not q. So it's a complement of this q. Okay, and in fact if you see, so that's it. Now there is nothing more to define, and in fact we will see that the irrational number are actually as abundant as the rational number, and this is a fact we will be proving in maybe the first chapter, in this chapter itself. Okay, and so what we conclude is that R is now made up of two kind of number, the real, this is the set for real number, this is the set of real number. So this R script R is made up of two kinds of number, rational number and irrational number. I believe that you understand the operation on set. This is union. Okay, and in fact these sets are such that they are disjoint. That means there is nothing common in this set. Okay, rational and irrational, because from the definition itself it is clear that if a number is rational, it is not irrational, and if it is irrational, then it is not a rational number. So with this structure we proceed ahead discussing certain basic and standard property or algebraic properties of a real number. Now there are two basic operations which the properties of which we will be discussing. One is called as the addition and the other one is called as the multiplication. In fact there are two more which are derived from these two operations. And before proceeding further, before discussing any standard properties, we discuss these properties of real number with the operation addition. These are also called as the axioms or rules. Axioms are the statement which does not have a proof, and we predefine, we take it as a properties, and using those properties we prove the standard result in that particular concept. So we have this, the properties of addition of real numbers listed below. The first one I will call it as A1, A2, A3, A4, and the properties of multiplication I will call it as M1, M2, M3, M4. These are the four very basic and very fundamental properties of addition which one need to consider discussing any kind of proof or any kind of statement in real number system. So, the first property says that addition of two numbers are commutative, that means x plus y is same as y plus x for all x comma y in R. For any real number, x plus y is always same as y plus x, and that's this kind of property is called as the commutativity. Commutativity of the operation addition, in this case addition is used. And the second property is basically a shifting brackets, x plus y plus z is same as x plus y plus z for all x, y, z in R. What does this mean? Is computing x plus y first plus z would be same as computing y plus z and adding it with x, okay, and that's called as the associativity of addition. Don't forget this name, because more or less you will come across this term commutativity, associativity maybe in future also. So, there exists a unique element, okay, if you observe the first two statement, it contain the quantifier, only one quantifier that is universal. So, you may try to write down all these properties using quantifier. There exists a unique element 0, the next one. 0 in R says that x plus 0 is equal to 0 plus x is equal to x for all x in R, and that's called as the existence of additive identity or 0 in R. Now, that's the property of identity element. What does happen in identity elements? Whenever you operate that elements on any other element of that particular element, you should get back the same element, like what is happening over here. X plus 0 is equal to x. In fact, you don't have to say that 0 plus x is equal to x, because it follows from the first property. If x plus 0 is equal to x, 0 plus x will also be equal to x. So, it is not necessary always to mention this. Okay. Now, what does this property says? That there exists a unique element 0. So, existential quantifier first, such that for every x in R, x plus that 0 is equal to x, or 0 plus x is equal to x, right. And so, from this statement we understand that this identity or 0 element is common for every element in R, okay, and that's called as the additive identity or 0 element. Next one is the additive inverse. Having defined the additive, we can go next property for the additive inverse, and so the sequence is very important. So, what does it says? That for every x in R, there exists a unique element y in R such that x plus y is equal to 0. We denote y by minus x, and that's how the subtraction came into existence. So, it's the inverse of addition. Okay. Now, again understand this statement very carefully. You have a universal quantifier first, and what you are saying that for every x in R, there exists a unique y. So, for that particular x, there is a unique y in R such that x plus y is equal to 0. So, existence of y depend on x. So, for example, if you take x to be equal to 3, in that case y will be equal to minus 3. If you take x to be equal to 4, y will be equal to minus 5, and so on, and that's called as the additive inverse. So, there is a unique element for each x, there is a unique element. Unique means only one element having that property. So, these are the 4 properties or axioms for the addition of real numbers. Let us go for the multiplication. So, the first one, similar property, x dot y is equal to y dot x for all x comma y in R, and that's called as the commutativity. X dot y dot z, here dot denotes the product, okay, is equal to x dot y dot z for all x comma y z in R. That's called as the associativity of multiplication. Then again there is a identity element, multiplicative identity also. So, that's denoted by 1. There exists a unique element 1 in R such that x dot 1 is equal to 1 dot x is equal to x for all x in R. Okay, just look at the way the statement involving existential and universal quantifier is framed. You can actually put this in the notion of quantifiers. Okay, it will have a one standard notation. So, that's the existence of multiplicative identity. As I said, identity plays a role that whenever you operate that element on any element, it gives you back the same element. Okay. Next, having defined the multiplicative identity, we have the multiplicative inverse. Now, here this multiplicative inverse cannot be defined for all x in R. So that's a turning point. X is not equal to 0 in R. So for any x which is non-zero, there exists a unique y such that x dot y is equal to 1, which is equal to y dot x, and we denote this y by x inverse or 1 by x in multiplicative. So again, that existence of y depend on x. So if x is equal to 5, y will be equal to 1 by 5. If x is equal to 10, y will be equal to 1 by 10, and so on. So we have a common property on multiplication and addition. So that's called as the distributivity of multiplication or addition. And what does it says? For any x, y, z in R, we have x dot y plus z is equal to x dot y plus x dot z. So it can be splitted in this way. Now there is a very basic and important law that we have. It's called as the law of trichotomy. It is basically used to compare two numbers. Okay. Now what does it say is that given any two numbers x and y, exactly one of the following will be true. Exactly one, that is x is equal to y, either x is equal to y or x is less than y. This is called as the order relation, less than. So it is used to compare the two values. As I said, it is x is less than y or y is less than x. So exactly one of the following will be true. Either the given two number are equal, or one will be less than or equal to another. Okay. Now the notation that we use for this less than, this is actually called as the order relation in R. We often denote y greater than x, strictly greater than x, to denote x less than y. And you know the property of being saying greater than or less than. Okay, so I don't have to define that. Whenever I say x less than with this straight line under the strictly less than, under that under this strictly less than is same as saying, I mean to say either x is equal to y or x is less than y. So possibility is both. I mean, since both are not possible, at least one of them is true. Either we don't know exactly which one is true. So x is equal to y or x is strictly less than y, and so on. That means so on means for greater than or equal to also. So these are the laws, these are the predefined properties we have. Okay, now we would prove this, we would discuss this one remark which says that whenever x is less than y and y, this is for any x. So it can be in terms of quantifier, it can be stated as for all x comma y in R. If x is less than y and y is less than x, then x is equal to y. So you see that this is of the form if s then t, right. So the two statements that are involved over here are first one is x less than y and y less than x. That's one statement. And another statement is so this is one. So the statement is of the form if x, then x is equal to y. Basically I'll generate a proof for this. Okay, so this is what I have to prove. Now there are ways to prove this kind of statement whenever it is of the form if s then t. Either you can directly go from s to t, okay, or by with some working rule, or by using certain facts of s or the definition of s, or equivalently you prove that if not t then not s. That's exactly the contrapositive, and we have seen that the contrapositive of the implication of its implication given state of given statement and its contrapositive are equivalent. Okay, so there is no harm in proving this way, that is if this way not is possible, so I'll prove it that if not x is equal to y, that is if x is not equal to y, then okay, this is equivalent to this statement, then okay, then x less than or equal to y and y less than or equal to x is not true. Okay, it's not true. So basically, when do we say that this is not true? This is not true means what? That is, if x is not equal to y, then okay, negation of n. So negation of n, okay, again you can split this as p and q. So the negation of p and q will be not p or not q. Now what is not p? P is x is less than or equal to y. So only possible by law of trichotomy is what? Only possibility by law of trichotomy is what? X is greater than y, because here you are assuming both the cases, x is strictly less than y and x is equal to y. So only possible is x is greater than y, or here you are saying y is less than x or y is equal to x. So only possible y is less than or equal to x is not true, means only possibility you have is that y is greater than x. So this is what basically you have to prove. So that's your claim. I can consider this as claim, because I cannot prove it directly, so I will prove it in this way. Okay. So if I assume that x is not equal to y, okay, then this should directly implies that either x is less than y or y is less than x by law of trichotomy. Yes, by law of trichotomy, isn't it? Because you can see that if x is not equal to y, there are only two possibility, x is less than y or y is less than x, and that is exactly this is what we mean, and so we have proved. So therefore the negation, therefore the contrapositive of this will be true, that is the negation of this. See, the negation is a vice versa process. The negation of this will be same as what we have mentioned over here, and the negation of this will be same as what we have mentioned over here. Okay. So thus I can say that thus not of this, that is x, if x is less than or equal to y and y is less than or equal to x, then this is not true. X is not equal to y is not true, means what? X is equal to y. So we prove this, or we get to the conclusion through the contrapositive, and this is how the contrapositive is used. So to get to know more about the proof in mathematics, you just go through the video on proofs which I have discussed in the series Foundation of Mathematics. Okay. So that is how we come to the conclusion that whenever x is less than or equal to y and y is less than or equal to x, both this thing happen, then x is equal to y. So this is a standard application of law of trichotomy. So let us list down the properties or fact of this order relation strictly less than. So we will fix to one notation and we would proceed with that, strictly less than, and then okay, the greater than is as same as deriving minus from plus. Okay. So the first law is called as the transitivity law. If x is less than y and y is less than z, then see it is something like if I have Ram is smaller than, I mean smaller in height. Okay. Ram is smaller than Sham and Sham is smaller than Gagan, then Ram will be smaller than Gagan in terms of height. Okay. So it is something like that. If x is less than y and y is less than z, then x is less than z. Okay. And so we also can say that if x is greater than y and y is greater than z, then x will definitely greater than z. Then if x is less than y and z is any real number, then I can add this z on both the sides. So it won't change the inequality. In fact, again it will remain balanced. X plus z will be less than y plus z. If x is less than y, then multiplying by minus sign, your inequality will be reversed. So you will have minus y less than minus x. Okay. And so even if it is less than or equal to, we can reverse the inequality. For any x in R, x square is always non-negative, x square is always greater than or equal to 0, and in particular 0 is less than 1. Why? Because 1 square is equal to 1, so it is greater than or equal to 0, but since it is not equal to 0, we say that it is strictly greater than 0. If x is greater than 0 and y is less than 0, then the product is negative. And the last property we have is that whenever 0 is less than x less than y, 0 is less than 1. Okay, so there is an error over here. 0 is less than 1 by y, less than 1 by x. Okay, 0 is less than 1 by y, less than 1 by x, and the similar property can be also defined for a negative real numbers also, since it is derived from the positive real numbers. So this property says that whenever you have 0 less than x less than y, then 0 is less than 1 by y less than 1 by x, and it cannot be defined for x is equal to y equal to 0, because the fractions involved over here are 1 by y and 1 by x. So here is an exercise set for you all, depending on the standard properties which we have mentioned, algebraic properties of addition and multiplication, distributive property, as well as some more standard properties of order relation. You should be able to prove this 4 problems. First one, for x less than y, prove that this is true. X is less than x plus y by 2 less than y. I would like you to interpret this on a real line. Okay, this is a very simple exercise. Okay, now this is something very important. Whenever x is less than or equal to y plus z, for all z greater than 0, in that case we can simply write x is always less than or equal to y. This is bit surprising, but it is very true and very important property. And the next is 0 is less than x less than y. We can raise the power by a natural number, and it won't change the inequality. So we can say that 0 is less than x square less than y square, and in fact in general x raised to n is less than y raised to n. Also 0 is less than root of x less than root of y. And the last one, 0 is less than x less than y, then the arithmetic geometric mean root of xy is less than x plus y by 2. So I expect you all to solve these 4 problems by the given hint, or using the various standard property which we have discussed. Okay, next class we will be discussing the very important notion in analysis, that is upper bound and lower bound. Thank you for watching this video.